says that mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing. This is the promise of love. In Malachi 3:10, the New Living Translation says, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try me, put me to the test. That same verse in the New International Version says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, and see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. Good morning, or maybe I should say, God is blessing. Maybe that's how we should greet each other. We hear these words in Malachi 3:10 repeated every Sabbath when the tithes and offerings are collected. But do they still hold meaning to us? Do we claim his promise? Are we faithful in our stewardship of all that we have and all that we are? It is a conditional promise. Our part is to return just a portion of what is his, a tenth and an offering. Ezekiel 34:26 tells us that God's blessings come as dew showers, raining down on us in abundance, refreshing and revitalizing us. In our church body, members are in varying stages of growth when it comes to spiritual matters. We aren't all at the same level of growth and development at the same time. For many of you, what I will be sharing this morning is a baseline review, but for others, some of it will be new information. I pray that you will be encouraged to reflect on your spiritual growth as evidenced by the fruits of the Spirit that we read about in Galatians 5, verses 22 through 26, that have become a part of your life, not just what you've read or heard someone say, but what has been incorporated into your daily life as you walk with God. We will call this segment Tithing 101. And since the time I have to speak to you is short, it will be divided over a couple of segments, this week being the first. Today, the focus will be on filling out your tithe and offering envelope. So let's take a look at your tithe envelope. You can look at the screens or look at the actual tithe envelope in the back of the pews in front of you. The first word inside says, please print. And to clarify, I would add, please print legibly, so that your envelope is able to be read without difficulty. Please take your time in filling out your envelope so that your year-end giving receipt will accurately reflect your name, address, and giving information, which is to say, take your time to add up the numbers again before you seal the envelope. Look at the amount written on your checks, ensure that it matches the envelope total, and that any cash enclosed matches the envelope total. The first line asks for you to write the date. That's pretty straightforward. But say, for example, you went on vacation for a month and on return you came back to church and you gave your tithes in separate envelopes dated for each week. That's not necessary to do, but some people prefer to do that. When you received your year-end tithe receipt in January, you may have wondered why the receipt is not showing the envelopes entered in the weeks that you intended for them to be given. Although the dollar amounts from each of your envelopes will be entered, they will be shown as if they were given, as if they were all donated on the week that they were physically received by the treasurer and entered into the accounting system. It in no way affects the total amount that you donated for the year. That is, as long as you turn in those envelopes up until midnight on December 31st. Include your name, and if you and your spouse are returning your tithes and offerings jointly, you should include both of your names on the tithe envelope along with your current mailing address. This is especially important if you intend to itemize your income tax return and plan on using tithe envelopes that were the tithe receipts that were given you in January for the previous year. You should fill out your first and last name each time and not assume that the person handling the envelope will know who you are because you put your first name on the envelope, or that they will recognize you by your handwriting. Tithe envelopes are kept on record as a reference that can be referred back to for a time. Tithe envelopes are part of the auditing process that occurs once every 2 years. When you have a change of address, you should make sure the treasurer is aware of that, or at least indicate it as new address on the tithe envelope. From time to time, the treasurer may need to call you for clarification on something that you may have entered on your envelope that is not readily understood, or an error in calculation that was made. So you should also ensure that the treasurer has your current telephone number. It is important to return the phone call promptly when you have received a message, because the process is a time-sensitive process, and if you delay in returning the call, you may be delaying the overall process. The financial overview that is included on the last page of our weekly church bulletin is calculated after the information from the envelopes have been entered into the accounting system, and then it is given to the church bulletin clerk. So if one delays in a timely reply with the needed corrected information, the treasurer is delayed in moving forward, and so is the church bulletin clerk. And if you delay a whole week, then the information in the church bulletin will not accurately reflect the true numbers. That is assuming that you have contributed to the local church budget on which those numbers are based. The next section is divided into tithe, which is given priority. Then is listed the local church offerings, then conference offerings, and the world church offerings. Tithe is 1/10 of all our increase. Deuteronomy 26 says, "We honor the Lord with our first fruits." It is an act of thanksgiving, acknowledging Him and returning to Him first, and as an act of faith that He will provide for us. If we are employed, it is 1/10 of our gross income, not our net income, that the word says that we are to return. If your only income is from Social Security, you tithe from the overall amount from which your Social Security has been deducted. It is important that you specify where you want your offering donations to go and not leave it up to the treasurers to determine. Your giving should be your commitment with God, so make it a matter of prayer. We do have some donors that specify that they want a certain amount to go to their tithes and the balance to be divided between the church budget and evangelism, or the church budget and the building fund, for example, based on the church's needs. At this moment in time, because of our challenge in striving to meet our monthly expenses, I would suggest that donations to the church budget are always welcome and are especially needed. With that being said, our largest monthly expense is our subsidy, our investment in our church school next door, Reading Junior Academy. You should be aware that you are able to donate specifically to RJA Operating Fund. If you want all of that portion of your donation to go towards subsidizing or supporting the church school. I see that my time is up. Next time I will be sharing with you more on what funds we receive from our local offerings go towards, plus a not so often thought of way to conceptualize our stewardship and our returning to God that I recently heard and I can't wait to share with you. Until then, may your experience with God leap from mercy drops to showers, and I dare say even to torrential downpours of blessings. And may you have the acuity to discern them as you exercise faithful stewardship to God in all that you do. And most importantly, may your focus be centered on the blessor, his presence in our lives. We must remember that his presence in our lives is our ultimate blessing. Seek the blesser and be a blessing.